We're absolutely drowning in news about AI breakthroughs. It seems like every day there's some incredible new image generator or a new piece of tech that's going to change everything. But there's a story that isn't being told nearly as often, and that's the story of failure. So let's dive into that. Because the reality behind all the hype, well, it's pretty staggering, and understanding it is absolutely crucial for figuring out what's next for AI.
Okay, just look at this number. Seriously. No, that is not a typo. Report after report from across the industry shows that somewhere between 80 and a whopping 95% of AI projects either fail to get off the ground or never deliver any real, measurable value. Think about that. That is a huge disconnect between what's promised and what's actually delivered. This isn't just a few projects hitting a snag. We're talking about a systemic, industry-wide problem.
So that brings us to the big question, right? The central question of this whole explainer. Why? With so much money, so much talent, and so much computing power being thrown at AI, why are so many of these projects just falling flat? Is the technology just not there yet? Or is something else going on entirely? Well, let's break it down. To really get to the bottom of this crisis, we kind of have to do an autopsy on these failed projects. And what you find is that it's rarely a single big catastrophic event. Instead, it's a collection of different issues that we can group into a few key categories. And a lot of them start long before anyone even thinks about writing a single line of code.
And that brings us to our first major point of failure, and it happens right at the very beginning. It's all about strategy and planning, the high-level vision for the project. And when that foundation is shaky, the whole thing is pretty much guaranteed to crumble.
Now, these issues don't just happen in a vacuum. They all feed into each other. It often kicks off with completely unrealistic expectations, usually fueled by all the media hype. A manager hears about what a competitor is doing and suddenly demands an AI solution, but without any clear objective. That leads to projects without defined goals. I mean, how can you know if you've succeeded if you never even defined what success looks like? Then you sprinkle in constantly shifting priorities and terrible communication, and you've basically got the perfect recipe for a project that was doomed from the start.
But a bad strategy isn't the only project killer out there. Even if you have the most brilliant plan in the world, the whole thing can fall apart during execution if you don't have the right building blocks, and maybe more importantly, the right people in place.
Welcome to the engine room of AI, where things get messy. Data is supposed to be the fuel, but it's often the single biggest problem. You've got bad quality data, information that's locked up in different departments, or data sets that are biased. Any of these can poison a model before it's even built. Then you have the fact that there's a huge shortage of data engineers. These are the people who actually build the pipelines to get that data clean and usable. And finally, there's the talent gap. You can't just have a team of people who are good at following tutorials. Real-world AI needs deep, collaborative expertise, not just copying and pasting code.
So we've looked at strategy, and we've looked at execution. But when you really start digging into all these different issues, a common thread starts to appear. It turns out, the biggest challenges in artificial intelligence, well, they aren't always artificial. They're often deeply, deeply human. This quote right here just nails it. When you actually listen to the data scientists and engineers, the people on the front lines, they'll tell you the technology itself is rarely the main obstacle. The real killer is the hype cycle. It leads to this fundamental misunderstanding by leadership of just how much time, money, and resources it really takes to make an AI project work. So here's the bottom line, the crucial takeaway. We have to reframe how we think about AI failure. It is not a failure of the algorithms or the computing power. It's a failure of process. It's about a fundamental breakdown in planning and management, and in that critical, unglamorous work of actually integrating these powerful new tools into how a business already operates.
Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem, and it sounds pretty grim. But what's the cure? Well, the good news is that by studying all these failures, we can actually create a pretty clear blueprint for success. Understanding exactly why projects fail gives us the formula for how to make them succeed. And this is it. This is basically the playbook. First, define realistic, specific, and measurable goals. Don't just say, let's do AI. Solve a real business problem. Second, you have to treat data readiness as step 0. It's a prerequisite, not something you figure out later. Third, this is a team sport. You need data scientists, engineers, project managers, and business experts all in the same room talking to each other. And finally, don't go for some massive big bang launch. Use smaller, incremental rollouts so you can get feedback, learn, and adapt as you go. Ultimately, if you take away just one thing, let it be this. Building successful AI systems isn't about finding some magical algorithm or hiring one genius coder. It's about discipline. It requires the same serious, rigorous approach to planning, management, and execution as any other critical engineering project. And when we start treating it that way, those failure rates will start to drop.
So, I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. As this technology keeps evolving at a dizzying speed, it really forces us to look in the mirror. Is the biggest barrier to unlocking the true potential of AI really the technology itself, with all of its complexity? Or is it us, our expectations, our planning, and our ability to work together to solve real problems?